So today we are joined by Mary Pender Greene. Mary Pender Greene is an LCSW-R. She's a certified group psychotherapist, a career executive and coach, a therapist, a consultant, and author. Currently, Mary is the CEO of MPG Consulting, and she's the former assistant executive director of the Jewish Board. Thank you so much for joining us, Mary.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and I appreciate our long history, and that really makes me happy to be able to be here for you in this situation.
I so appreciate you. I really do. I've learned so much from you over the years. It's been amazing. So I definitely appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start with my first question.
Okay.
So, Mary, you spent over 20 years in a C-level position at one of the largest and most successful nonprofits in the country. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got there and what that was like for you?
Yeah, well, I often describe it as being in the belly of the beast. And so I learned a lot of things in the process. I also feel very honored to have had the journey, despite the fact that it was often very painful in the process, because I was often the only person of color in the room. And many times early in my career, it was long before I had the language to be able to talk about what that was like for me. The other thing I want to say about it, and then I will talk about how I got there. The reason that I do the work today, the work as the president and CEO of MPG Consulting, my focus is on helping organizations, leaders especially, to eliminate bias and structural racism in the workplace. And so for most of my career, I thought about people as being John or Harry or Sue, and basically thought of racism as individual acts of meanness. So it was hard for me to talk and think about my colleagues as having anything to do with racism, because I thought of racism as individually people being mean and unkind. And that wasn't the case, but racism was embedded in the system.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it is now. And so I got an early start on the DEIB work and the anti-racist work by living, doing my journey in the nonprofit arena. So I ended up at the Jewish Board because I was working with the former CEO in a job. Actually, we were both at the Children's Aid Society in Harlem when we met, and he left from there and went to the Jewish Board. And he called me within 6 months after he got there and asked me if I would consider coming and working there. And I said no. And the reason that I said no is because I wanted to work with my people. And at the moment that he called, I had no idea that the Jewish Board had a large amount of folks of color there. And so he called me 2 other times before I finally came. And that was because I finally had the conversation with him about I want to work with my people. And he said, oh, well, we have lots here.
Wonderful.
So I was not, as I said, I didn't have the language. I didn't feel as though it was okay to say that at that moment in time. And so a part of the work that I do currently is to make sure that there are no other people that are in the situation where they're not able to talk across difference. And this is for white people as well as for BIPOC folks.
Terrific. So he was very, very persistent, and
Absolutely.
you were able to speak with him and communicate and really get the information that you needed to make that decision.
Yes. And the other piece of it is that as he moved up, I moved up. And it had to do with the connection and his mentorship of me in that system. And so I know that you know that I wrote a book about mentorship. So it's the career building strategies, how to build your virtual personal board of directors, and how necessary it is to have people that are mentors and advocates for you. And I'm not thinking about mentorship in the traditional way where you actually sit down with somebody once a week and, 4 times a month, nothing like that. We're talking about relationship building with people who can be supportive of you. And that is such an important piece of what's necessary, because the one thing that I can truly say is it doesn't matter how skilled you are if indeed you don't have access. And so access is such an important piece of the work. Otherwise, you could be skilled, but if you don't get in or you don't get opportunity, it just becomes frustrating for the individual as well as for the institution.
Absolutely. I completely hear you on that. So I have definitely read your book, and I know many other people also have. And that kind of, it's a terrific guide, and it helped me tremendously throughout my career, and it's helped many other people that I know. And I think that brings us to the next point, right? You have done a tremendous amount of work advancing the careers of Black and Brown folk within the industry. I meet Black and Brown professionals all the time. And, sometimes I ask people how they got started, and I can't tell you, at least half the time they tell me that they met Mary Pender Greene at a training, a workshop, a professional space, that you spoke with them. And from there, they were able to figure out what their next step should be, or they communicated with you and you helped them to figure out how to do X, Y, Z, or you provided some form of guidance, mentorship, career coaching, training, something to help them be able to build within our industry. Where did that desire and passion come from? And was that strategic for you?
So I always say that I was born in a group. I am the 10th of 11 children, and my parents adored each other. And a part of what they did was to stress the importance of collaboration with us. And so I always had a collective mindset. That was sort of what my parents instilled in us. I still live near my family, and having my siblings available is really how I grew up. Now, the thing I want to say about that is that it's absolutely natural for me to collect relationships. Other people have hobbies, they collect all kinds of things. I collect people in the process, and I love it. And the thing that was unique about my role at the Jewish Board as Chief of Social Work and Assistant Executive Director, we had more than 100 interns. And I was each year social work interns, as well as psychologists and psychiatrists, et cetera, other groups as well. But one of my roles was to do all of the hiring, and I did all of the hiring for almost, I don't know, maybe a little bit more than 20 years. And each time I interviewed people, like I remember one of my interns had collected the amount of interviews that I did in a year. And I did 800 interviews and I hired
Wow.
106 people,
Oh
according
my
to
goodness.
my administrative interns over the years.
Yeah.
And of course, it varied from year to year. But basically, when I hired people, I would say the Jewish Board had 3,600 staff at that time. So the idea of hiring 100 people in a year was not unthinkable. But the thing I want to say is that when I hired people, it meant that I might have seen 6 or 7 other people beyond the one that I actually hired. And
Right.
sometimes people would get back to me and say, why didn't you hire me? And I know that in institutions, organizations primarily don't want you to say that for fear that they're going to be sued in some way. But I used to do that. I would, anybody that ever called me back and said, you know, why didn't you hire me? I told them it wasn't just BIPOC folks, it was anybody that I interviewed. And if they called me back, I would tell them. And I would give them mentorship tips. And a part of the book was about my journey and the people that I met and the work that I did to help people to increase their virtual board. And one of the things that I said to everyone that ever crossed my path was that you should grow your network. You know, just
Right.
because you leave a job, you should never leave the job and not keep in touch with people. Or if somebody's on your job and they're leaving, it's so crucial to keep the relationship going with those folks, because in essence, a part of your virtual board is having a variety of people that you can reach out to get the information that you need. And I feel blessed that anytime somebody comes to me with any request, I know something about it, or I know someone in the network that knows something about it, or I can send out an announcement to the thousands of people that are in my contact list, and someone will come back with a suggestion.
Yes.
This week, as a matter of fact, someone had reached out to me and said that she was a new widow, a young widow. And I sent out an announcement because she said she was in widows groups, but everybody was older and losing their mate as they were older, or that they, if she was in a singles group, people were there, single parents group, because she has a new baby. People were there complaining about their ex, but her mate died the day before her baby was born. And so what that meant for me when she reached out, I didn't have an answer for that, but I sent it out to the network. And within a half hour, I got responses back. That to me is about the idea that I don't have to have the answer, but if I have a network of people I can reach out to, somebody's gonna have that answer, and you can have that no matter who you are. You can develop a network so that in essence, you aren't on your own, whether it's a personal item or a professional item, or people that you need for your network. And I've done that with you.
You have many times. And I've appreciated it every single time, and I appreciate you for it. So thank you. So that brings me to thinking about sort of the way that you collaborate and you work with people and you build consistently, you build. It makes me think about your work with PSAB, with the People's Institute. And I know I had first heard about the People's Institute from you and learning that from you very early in my career at a training where you spoke. And then from there, I was able to learn more and develop that end of my career, get started at least. Can you share a bit about your work with PSAB? And because I kind of feel like you've really done a lot to change the landscape.
Well, thank you. I am truly delighted. I feel as though without my connection with PSAP, I feel as though my career at this point would be very different. I had anticipated that I'd leave my full-time job and do private practice, having to do with couples or maybe some limited coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I met the folks from PSAP while I was chief of social work and president of NASW. And I, along with Sandy Burnaby, brought them to New York City to do the first Undoing Racism workshop in New York City. And of course, when I first heard about them, Sandy said to me, gee, who could you reach out to talk about structural racism? I said, nobody. I don't know anybody that I could have that conversation with. And of course, I went kicking and screaming to the workshop, but it changed my life, personal life, as well as my professional life, because things that I had experienced throughout my career, I gained language to talk about what they were. And it was absolutely life-changing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've had that same life-changing experience with their 2-day workshop. And I've gone 3 times at this point. So it's just amazing.
Well, I'm embarrassed to tell you I've gone more than 30 times for the whole thing. The other thing I want to say about it is that my business, MPG Consulting, provides the CEUs for the workshop, 16 credits for the workshop, and I'm delighted to do that as a part of my contribution to the People's Institute and the work that they've done to help change the landscape of New York and how almost any institution, surely nonprofit, is aware of the anti-racist work.
Yeah, and I'll also share in the link, I'll share some information about them, and so that if anyone wants to get in touch, they're able to do that as well. So Mary, you also have some informal titles, right? I've heard you called Queen Mary.
Oh my.
Queen Mary, right? The Black Professional Incubator, and Mother Mary. and Mother Mary is another one. So
oh my God.
Yes, it's quite a legacy you have built. What do you think of being seen and known for making such significant change and for your leadership in the field, and even more specifically within the Black and Brown communities in our field? How does it feel to be known that way?
Well, first of all, those titles I had never heard before, so they were talking about me behind my back. I didn't know. It's been my goal to make a difference. Every morning when I wake up, before my feet hit the ground, or hit the floor next to my bed, my goal is to make a difference. I feel as though aging is definitely not for wimps, and that there are lots of things that's happened with my body that I'm not so happy about. However, the wonderful, wonderful gift of aging is wisdom. And I am so excited about sharing it. Every day I'm thinking about who might I share this with? And collecting people in my circle and in the work that I do. I so love the work. I wanted to be a social worker since I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
And I've never wanted to do anything else. And I went from 1st grade through my master's in social work without working. And I love it even more today.
Amazing.
I have loved it throughout my career. Now, it doesn't mean that it hasn't caused me to cry many days in my car on the way home. It doesn't mean that I haven't been frustrated and had dreadful experiences. But it does mean that when I look back at my career, I would never have chosen anything other than social work. I don't know how to do anything else, and I absolutely feel that all of the work, the anti-racist work, the leadership, the coaching, all of it grew out of my basis in social work education and the career. And I just love it. I cannot begin to tell you how many people over my career I have encouraged to go there, you know.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I keep in touch with lots of people that might have been a volunteer at at my organization. I might have met them someplace else and talked them into going to social work school.
Right.
So it's awesome. I so love it.
Absolutely.
People sometimes said, "Are you retired?" And I said, never. As long as my brain worked and this mouth of mine worked, I'm at it. You know, I am at it forever because I feel as though the goal is to move the needle. What can I do in the process? And the wonderful thing about aging and the wisdom is that there are things that just are so clear to me. And when I coach people or am therapist to folks, it just feels so wonderful to me to be able to say, gee, you might want to consider this, this, and this, because those are the things that I wish I had at the moment that would have made a difference. And I'm hoping to make that difference in the lives of many other people.
Yeah, and I'm certain that you are.
I know that you didn't ask me this, but I want to share it.
Yes.
My career is crucial. I love it, all of the things that I do. And I'm a couples therapist as well. And I want to say that no matter how important your career is, having love in your life is equally as important. And I have my high school sweetheart that is the love of my life. And
amazing.
And it is, so the idea of the career in him is awesome, So when I'm coaching people who come for some form of professional help, it is not at all uncommon for me to say, okay, and how's your love life?
Yeah.
Are you working on that as well? Because when all is said and done, you need a combination. You need love and you need a profession. And so when I say that I coach, I say that I coach both personal and professional relationships.
That is terrific. Absolutely terrific. So, Mary, can you tell me just a little bit more about MPG Consulting?
Yeah. So when I was about to leave my role at the Jewish Board, I moved down the block from them, 2 blocks away, and I was doing some group stuff for them and some coaching things. And so I thought that was going to be my career. And what happened is that people started to call the Jewish Board to ask for the things that I used to do. And people were referring them to me down the block.
Amazing.
And at some point, I couldn't do it by myself because it was too much. And because of the 20+ years of experience I had with students and staff and people I helped relationships with, I reached out and asked people to do stuff with me and then for me. And so I had no intentions of MPG Consulting at all. It was really as a result of what grew. And so currently, MPG Consulting is an organization that is focused on leadership development and helping organizations to change the culture so that in essence, people are able to bring their best self to work without feeling as though they don't belong. And so a part of how we do that is we offer training on white organizational culture, debiasing the hiring process, coaching individuals as well as executives and executive teams and team building, talking about working on relationships beyond difference. And yes, it's about race and racism, but it's also about it's about LGBTQIA+ issues. It's about accessibility issues. It's about any issues that causes people to not be able to be their best self and bring their best self to the work environment. And the most important thing is that we have to keep in mind that no matter how skilled people are, they were not taught at school or any training that they took to address these issues. And so MPG Consulting basically helps people to learn the things that they didn't do or know earlier in their career. And we have more than 90 consultants, and it's a cross-racial mix of people, every group. And so when I talk about collecting people, I'm constantly looking for people to be a part of our collective so that when there's a need that presents itself, there is someone in our network, in our team that's able to respond to the need of the institution.
It's absolutely wonderful. I love the way that, you left and you didn't have any intention of it. You were focused on your private practice. And then all of a sudden, the process happened of you seeing the need to develop this into more than just like accepting the referrals and kind of parceling out the help that you could. I think that's terrific.
I think one of the things that I feel very strongly about, and I talk to people about all the time, is how it's necessary not to have a firm picture of what my business is going to look like. What's going to look like in 5 years and all that stuff. I feel as though if you are open to things that come to you and clear about where your passion lies, it grows in a way that You don't have to plot out the next plan for the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's I'm following my passion, doing the things that fit with me, and it just expands.
Terrific. I love that. That is terrific. Absolutely. And it also kind of allows just for more freedom, right? And more freedom and flexibility about with doing what you love and what you're passionate about. So I think that's terrific.
I think the other thing about this too is that what makes MPGC unique is that everyone that's involved with the consulting firm is a person that is already doing their work, that they are doing anti-racist work in their own private practice, in their own organization, etc. And they come together as a part of a team so that we as a collective can offer skills that no institution would have alone. And so we come in and do things and help people to do anti-racist work with high quality folks who are absolutely passionate. That's key to the work, passionate and skilled.
Absolutely.
The journey is endless. And so the idea of having people who are passionate is such an important piece of being able to get the work done.
Absolutely. So Mary, I just have one more question if I can.
Okay.
So if you were to give advice to a younger BIPOC professional, someone interested in making a difference, someone who say just got their LMSW and is figuring out next steps and they're not sure where to go, what would you say to them? You who's had this huge, has this huge, amazing career and business and is such an influence in our field, what would you say to them?
I'd say get yourself a therapist.
Okay.
And make sure that that therapist is a social worker with an anti-racist lens. That would be the first thing. Taking care of yourself, because in essence, you can't go where you've not been. And so all of the years that I was chief of social work and supervising people in that realm, I always talked about the best way to learn to be a therapist is to be a patient. And I will be a patient forever because the idea is to continue to learn. The next thing that I would say is that it's important to be able to enhance your clinical skills, but also enhance your administrative and leadership skills. I recall that early in my career, all of my supervisees or supervisors said things like, you know, get a certification in couples, which I did. Get a certification in family, which I did. Get a certification in working with adults, which I did. Get a certification in group, which I did. So I did all of those things and always said, I don't want to be an administrator. But anytime you're working in an institution, at some point, if you stay around long enough, it sits on your lap. And it took me a very long time to be able to combine the two because I have a ton of certifications in every part of working with adults. I don't do any children, don't have any skills in that department, but my two children helped me to know that that's not your area of expertise. While I love them, I was definitely not skilled in working with with children.
Mm-hmm.
However, if indeed you combine the two, it took me, I went later in my career for a certification in organizational development and coaching. And that was long after I had all of the other certifications and training. And so it came to me later, having spent a lot of years learning on the job and struggling. It is so much better to have those skills and not have to learn them on the job, because you get pretty wounded in the process. You know, I recall feeling that if I had relationships with people, the organizational dynamics wouldn't impact me. Boy, was I wrong. Do you know what I mean? I needed those skills. So I help people today. This BIPOC person that you wish that I were talking to, I would basically say, do a combination of clinical and administrative. Learn about what leadership is about, learn about what organizational dynamics are about, so that you don't spend so many years, as I did, being wounded by the impact of what happens in institutions and personalizing it. And so a part of what my coaching is about, helping people to recognize this isn't about you. These are organizational dynamics. And as I said, I didn't do that until way longer in my career, after spending a bunch of time crying in my car and feeling wounded unnecessarily.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This is terrific, and that is amazing advice. If it's okay, I'll share your websites, if that's okay with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And
terrific.
anybody that feels a need, I'd be delighted to hear from. I'm always collecting people.
Terrific, Mary. Terrific.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for this. I greatly appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay.